My beloved child, listen carefully, because what I am about to speak is not ordinary information. It is a revelation that moved quietly through the unseen before your mind ever caught up. A financial authorization was marked complete, not loudly, not publicly, not with celebration or proof in your hands, but in silence. Heaven did not announce it. People around you were not informed. Even you were not alerted in the way you expected. And yet it was finished. This is why you felt strange shifts lately, moments of calm mixed with confusion, hope followed by sudden questions. Something changed without explanation. That is because the paperwork of heaven does not require human applause to be valid. There are moments when divine systems finalize things while your natural reality still looks unchanged. Those moments are dangerous for faith, because the human mind trusts only what it can verify. But hear this clearly. Some completions are hidden for protection, not delay. What was authorized for you could not arrive loudly. It could not be rushed through visible doors. It had to be sealed first, guarded first, and accelerated under authority. That is where Archangel Michael stepped in, not emotionally, not symbolically, but with precision. He intervened when the process stalled too long under resistance, fatigue, and unseen opposition. He did not start it. He enforced it. You were never meant to beg for what was already approved. The struggle you experienced was not rejection. It was resistance against timing. There is a difference. Heaven had already agreed, but earth was slow to comply. And when delay stretched too long, when endurance becomes heavy, when hope risks turning into resignation, enforcement is released. Archangel Michael's role has always been to stand where injustice tries to hold ground longer than allowed. That includes financial pathways, provision assignments, and resources tied to purpose. This is not about excess. This is about alignment. What makes this moment unsettling is not the delay, it is the silence. Silence makes people doubt their discernment. Silence convinces them nothing is happening. Silence tempts them to speak against what is still forming. That is why this message matters. Before movement becomes visible, understanding must become stable. You must see something first, not with your eyes, but with clarity. Because what comes next cannot survive confusion, fear, or careless speech. When something is accelerated, it arrives with responsibility attached. There is a reason this authorization was marked complete quietly. It passed through layers that required discretion. It moved through systems designed to protect you from misalignment, misuse, and unnecessary exposure. Not everything that is approved is immediately released. Some things are held briefly so that you can be positioned to receive without damage. The holding period is not punishment. It is mercy. It is covering. And during that window, Archangel Michael stands watch, not to tease you, but to ensure nothing interferes with what has already been signed off. You may be asking why this message is finding you now. It is because awareness must arrive before manifestation. If provision comes before understanding, it creates instability. Heaven does not release resources into environments that lack clarity. You are being prepared to recognize what is yours without panic, without guilt, without self-sabotage. This is why the acceleration happened in the unseen first. Your internal alignment is catching up to an external decision that was already made. Do not confuse quiet with absence. The most powerful movements often make the least noise at first. Think of seeds beneath soil. No applause, no evidence, only pressure and patience. That is where your situation has been living. You have been interpreting silence as stagnation, but heaven interpreted it as containment. Something valuable does not travel unguarded. and when resistance attempted to prolong the wait beyond its legal limit, enforcement was assigned. Archangel Michael does not move on impulse. He moves on instruction. His presence here signals that what was authorized required protection during acceleration. Acceleration without protection creates chaos. Acceleration with authority creates order. That is the difference you are about to experience. But first, you must release the belief that nothing hath been happening. That belief is the only thing that could delay what is already finished. This message is not here to excite you emotionally. It is here to steady you mentally. You are being asked to recognize that the struggle phase has shifted. The work now is not endurance, it is awareness. There are details you must notice, thoughts you must correct, and expectations you must refine. Not because heaven doubts you, but because heaven trusts you with more. A completed authorization does not mean everything changes overnight. It means the outcome is no longer in question. The process may still unfold in steps, but the verdict is settled. That is why peace can exist before proof. That is why you may feel calmer even though circumstances have not caught up yet. Your spirit sensed the conclusion before your environment announced it. This is not coincidence. This is not random content. You were brought here because understanding is required now. Something has already moved in your favor, and ignoring that reality could cause misinterpretation of what unfolds next. This is not about fear. This is about readiness. The door is no longer locked, but you must know how to walk through it without hesitation. Beloved one, what you must understand now is why heaven moved before you ever did. This is where many people misunderstand divine timing. They assume that action must begin on earth for heaven to respond. But there are moments when heaven initiates first, not because you were inactive, but because your endurance itself became the action. There are seasons when simply not quitting, not hardening your heart, not walking away in bitterness is the very signal that authorizes movement above. You stayed when leaving would have been easier. You hoped when logic told you to shut down. That is why the shift did not begin with you doing more. It began with heaven deciding enough was enough. Divine systems do not operate on panic or pressure. They operate on alignment. And alignment is often proven over time, not in intensity. Archangel Michael did not step in because you demanded. He stepped in because the delay outlived its assignment. Some delays are meant to refine. Others are meant to be confronted. Knowing the difference requires authority, not emotion. When resistance remains after its purpose has expired, enforcement is released. That is why this acceleration happened quietly. It was not about dramatic change. It was about correcting imbalance. Financial movement in the divine realm is never random. It is always tied to stewardship, responsibility, and purpose. Provision follows assignment. When heaven sees that the lack has begun to interfere with the assignment itself, intervention is justified. This is what many never realize. The delay was not just affecting your comfort, it was affecting your ability to function fully in what you were called to do. That is why this is not about luxury or excess. It is about restoring flow so that you are no longer restricted by constant survival mode. Heaven moved first because if it waited for your circumstances to improve before acting, the cycle would never break. Sometimes the pattern must be interrupted from above. That interruption looks like a sudden shift in the unseen before any visible evidence appears. It feels strange because you are used to reacting to what you see, not preparing for what has already been decided. This is where maturity is required. You are being invited to adjust your expectations without needing proof yet. Many people miss their moment not because it never came, but because they were still arguing with the old narrative when the new one began. They stayed mentally aligned with struggled even after provision was authorized. That inner conflict can slow manifestation. That is why awareness is being restored now. You are being told, clearly and calmly, that the verdict has changed. The question is whether your thinking will change with it. Archangel Michael's involvement signals protection, not pressure. Nothing that is coming is meant to overwhelm you. It is meant to stabilize you. But stability requires cooperation. That cooperation begins with releasing the belief that you must earn relief through exhaustion. You have already proven your faithfulness. You have already shown endurance. Heaven is not asking for more striving. It is asking for trust and readiness. This is also why this moment carries instruction, not just promise. There are practical adjustments that will follow, decisions that feel easier, doors that open without forcing, opportunities that no longer require compromise. But if you approach these shifts with suspicion or fear, you may hesitate when clarity is required. Understanding that heaven has already moved allows you to move forward without panic. Right now, pause and engage with this message. If this is resonating, acknowledge it. Let your agreement be known by liking this video, sharing it with someone who needs reassurance, and leaving a comment that declares you are ready to receive with wisdom. If you have not yet subscribed or joined the channel membership, this is a moment to do so. Not out of obligation, but alignment. Supporting what feeds your spirit keeps you connected to clarity when you need it most. What you are experiencing internally is not imagination. It is adjustment. When divine systems shift, the human mind often lags behind. Peace arrives before evidence. Confidence arrives before confirmation. That is normal. What is not helpful is resisting that peace because it feels unfamiliar. Calm does not mean nothing is happening. Calm means the outcome is no longer threatened. There is also a hidden condition attached to every authorization, readiness to manage what arrives. This does not mean perfection. It means awareness. You are being invited to think differently about money, flow, and provision, not as something you chase, but something you steward. That shift alone removes many blockages. When fear leaves, flow increases. Before this unfolds visibly, there will be a moment when you realize you are no longer anxious the way you used to be. That is not coincidence. That is alignment catching up. Pay attention to that change. It is one of the first confirmations that acceleration is active. Hold this understanding close, because what unfolds from here will make far more sense when you remember that heaven already moved first, and you are simply stepping into what was prepared ahead of you. My precious one, there was a moment you did not recognize as significant, yet heaven did. It was not dramatic. No one applauded. There was no sudden breakthrough that made you stop and say, "This is it." Instead, it was quiet, almost forgettable. A decision you made when you were tired. A prayer you whispered without expectation. A choice to remain honest when compromise would have been easier. That was the moment the invisible signature was placed. Heaven does not always sign documents with thunder. Sometimes it signs them with endurance. You may have thought that moment meant nothing because nothing changed immediately afterward. In fact, things may have even felt heavier. But that is often what happens when a process is finalized in the unseen. Pressure increases briefly because resistance senses that its authority is ending. That is when Archangel Michael steps closer, not to create noise, but to secure the perimeter. The authorization was not released because you were perfect. It was released because you were consistent. You did not abandon your integrity when no one was watching. That mattered more than you know. There are signatures that are written with ink, and there are signatures written with faith. Yours with a ladder. Heaven marked the moment you stopped asking why me and quietly said, I will endure. That internal shift spoke louder than 1,000 loud prayers and demonstrated maturity. It demonstrated readiness. And most importantly, it demonstrated that provision would not corrupt you, distract you, or pull you away from your purpose. Archangel Michael's role here was not symbolic. He stood as witness and enforcer. When a signature is placed in the unseen, it must be defended until execution is complete. A defense ensures that nothing interferes with timing, nothing alters the terms, and nothing exploits the transition period. This is why things did not collapse around you, even when they could have. Protection was active long before you knew you needed it. You may now realize that certain setbacks stopped abruptly, without explanation. Arguments that should have escalated did not. Losses that could have multiplied were contained. Doors that seemed permanently closed did not worsen. That was not luck. That was containment. Once the authorization was signed, destruction was no longer permitted to advance. Delay could remain briefly, but damage could not. A distinction matters. Heaven never releases provision into chaos. It stabilizes first. It protects first. It confirms identity first. The invisible signature marked the end of survival mode and the beginning of stewardship of preparation. That does not mean struggle vanished overnight. It means the outcome was secured. From that point on, every delay served refinement, not denial. Many people never realized that their greatest breakthrough was signed during their most exhausted season. They assume heaven responds only to strength, but often it responds to surrender. Not giving up was your declaration. Not turning bitter was your agreement. That agreement carried authority. It gave Archangel Michael legal ground to accelerate what had been lingering too long. Now hear this carefully. When heaven signs something, it does not revoke it. The authorization does not expire. The only variable left is alignment. That is why this message is reaching you now. Awareness is catching up to agreement. Understanding is catching up to authority. You are being shown the moment that mattered, so you stop questioning whether you qualify. Nothing about what is coming is accidental. It is not a surprise gift. It is a release that was documented, defended, and delayed only for preparation. You were never forgotten. You were being positioned. Take a breath here. Let the truth settle. You are not waiting for permission anymore. You are waiting for manifestation. Type I receive the confirmation in the comments if this is speaking directly to your spirit. Blessing code 717 has just been released. This is where I speak to those who feel the weight of this message deeply. As I share these words, I feel the urgency to invite you into something sacred. What you are witnessing here is not content. It is seed being scattered into hearts across the world. When you give through Super Thanks, membership, or PayPal, the link is in the description. You are not supporting a channel. You are helping light reach someone who is still in the dark. The Lord says, as you sow into living ground, I will open streams where drought once lived. I am asking you personally, as a witness to this moment, to respond in obedience, not hesitation. This act of giving is a prophetic agreement with what heaven is releasing now. I speak blessing over every giver. May your harvest rise faster than your expectation. Give now, and let your obedience become the echo that carries this message further. Beloved one, the question that has echoed quietly in your thoughts is this: if it is complete, why has nothing moved yet? This question is not wrong, and it is not faithless. It is human. But the answer requires you to see timing differently than you ever have before. Completion in heaven does not always equal immediate visibility on earth. There is often a measured pause between authorization and release, and that pause is intentional. It is not a denial. It is a safeguard. What hath been authorized carries weight. Not emotional weight, but structural weight. It shifts patterns, responsibilities, and even how others relate to you. When something like that is released too quickly, without preparation, it can create imbalance instead of relief. Heaven does not rush outcomes that must last. What you are stepping into is meant to be stable, not fragile. That is why it has been held, even after approval. During this pause, something important has been happening within you. Old expectations have been loosening. Your tolerance for stress has changed. Your reaction to lack is no longer as sharp as it once was. You may not have noticed it consciously, but your nervous system has been recalibrating. Panic has been replaced with patience. Desperation has been replaced with discernment. That internal shift is not accidental. It is necessary for what is coming. Archangel Michael's presence during this phase has not been loud or dramatic. It has been firm. He has been holding boundaries. There are things that could have reached you prematurely, offers that looked like answers but were actually distractions. Those were blocked. There were shortcuts that would have cost you peace later. Those were closed. This is why some opportunities never materialized, even though they seem promising. Protection sometimes looks like delay. It is also important to understand that not all movement is forward motion. Some movement is stabilization. Some movement is consolidation. Before resources expand, foundations must be reinforced. You have been in a phase of reinforcement. Weak points in your thinking, habits, and expectations have been addressed quietly. This is not wasted time. It is essential time. If the money had moved the moment approval was granted, it might have landed in an environment still shaped by anxiety and urgency. That environment would have consumed it rather than stewarded it. Heaven does not release provision into systems that leak. It seals the cracks first. That sealing often feels like nothing is happening, when in fact everything is being prepared. You may also have noticed that your conversations about money have changed. You are less reactive, less defensive, less ashamed, and shift matters. Provision flows more freely when it is no longer entangled with identity wounds. You are being separated from old narratives that tied your worth to struggle. That separation is part of the delay. Another reason for the pause is timing with other people and systems. What is coming to you is connected to movements beyond you. There are alignments that must occur, decisions others must make, structures that must be ready. Heaven coordinates these things precisely. When one part moves too early, the whole system destabilizes. This is why patience here is not passive. It is cooperative. Archangel Michael has been ensuring that when the flow begins, it does not stop abruptly. Sudden release followed by sudden loss is not divine acceleration. True acceleration is sustainable. It builds momentum rather than shock. What you are being spared from is emotional whiplash. The delay is cushioning the transition. You may have felt moments of frustration rise unexpectedly, almost as if something inside you wants to rush ahead. That tension is normal. It is the gap between completion and manifestation. The key during this phase is not to interpret that tension as failure. It is simply awareness catching up to reality. The outcome is no longer uncertain, even if the path still feels unclear. This is also a time to be mindful of your words. When something is near release, careless speech can create unnecessary resistance. Doubt spoken aloud has weight. So does gratitude. Choose carefully what you reinforce. Speak as someone who understands that the delay is purposeful, not punitive. Nothing about this pause is wasted. It is refining your capacity to receive without fear. It is teaching you to trust stability over urgency. It is aligning you with a flow that does not require constant struggle to maintain. Very soon, you will look back at this period and realize it was the bridge, not the barrier. The moment when nothing seemed to be moving was the moment everything was being secured. And when the release begins, it will feel natural, not shocking. That is how you will know it was prepared with care. For now, rest in this truth. The money did not move yet because it was being protected, and so were you. Beloved one, before any external flow can move freely, there must be an internal shift that makes space for it. This is the part few talk about, yet it is one of the most important stages in the entire process. What have been happening within you is not subtle refinement. It is deep recalibration. Heaven had been adjusting how you see yourself, how you interpret provision, and how you respond to responsibility. Without this shift, even authorized blessings can feel heavy instead of freeing. For a long time, your relationship with money was shaped by pressure. You learned to associate provision with stress, delay, or disappointment. Even when you hoped, there was often an underlying fear of loss. That fear was not a flaw, it was a result of repeated uncertainty. But fear cannot steward increase. Fear consumes instead of multiplies. That is why this internal work was necessary before anything moved outwardly. You may have noticed that certain old reactions no longer rise the way they used to. Situations that once triggered panic now create reflection instead. Bills, decisions, or conversations that once overwhelmed you now feel more manageable. This is not because your circumstances suddenly improved, but because your identity is no longer rooted in lack. Heaven hath been gently separating who you are from what you have. That separation creates freedom. Archangel Michael's involvement here hath been subtle but firm. He has not only defended the authorization, he has also guarded your inner environment. Thoughts that once spiraled into self-blame have been interrupted. Patterns of comparison have been weakened. The voice that said, "This always happens to me," has lost authority. These changes did not come from effort alone. They came from alignment. An internal shift is not about becoming someone new. It is about remembering who you were before struggle distorted your perspective. You are not meant to carry constant anxiety about survival. You are meant to steward, to build, to rest without guilt. This truth hath been resurfacing within you slowly, so it does not shock your system. Sudden change can be destabilizing. Gradual clarity creates strength. One of the most significant changes has been your sense of worth. You are no longer measuring your value by how much you endure. You are beginning to understand that rest does not disqualify you. Receiving does not make you weak. Stability does not make you complacent. These realizations are essential because what is coming requires confidence without arrogance and humility without fear. Heaven has also been addressing hidden resistance you may not have recognized. Sometimes people unconsciously resist provision because they associate it with responsibility they feel unprepared to carry. Sometimes they fear that increase will expose them to scrutiny or expectation. Those fears have been quietly surfaced and healed. You are being prepared to receive without feeling overwhelmed or exposed. This internal shift also includes discernment. You are becoming more selective about what you say yes to. Not every opportunity feels right anymore, even if it looks good on the surface. This is wisdom forming. When flow begins, discernment becomes your anchor. Without it, abundance can scatter energy instead of focusing it. You are learning to recognize what aligns with peace, not just potential. Another sign of this shift is patience without resignation. You are not giving up, but you are also not forcing outcomes. That balance is rare. It shows maturity. It signals readiness. Heaven responds to that posture with trust. When you no longer need to control every detail, you demonstrate that you can steward what you cannot fully predict. Archangel Michael has been reinforcing this balance by strengthening your courage. Courage is not loud confidence. It is quiet steadiness. It is the ability to move forward without complete certainty, anchored in trust rather than fear. That courage is what allows acceleration to be sustainable. Without it, rapid change can feel threatening. You may also sense a growing clarity about what truly matters to you. Certain desires have fallen away. Others have sharpened. This is not loss, it is focus. When flow begins, focus determines impact. Heaven does not release increase without direction. Direction had been forming within you all along. Understand this clearly. Nothing about this internal work was optional. It was the key. External flow follows internal readiness. The reason things feel different now is because they are different. You are not the same person who first asked for relief. You are stronger, calmer, and more grounded. That is why the door can open safely. This shift unlocks more than money. It unlocks peace. It unlocks confidence. It unlocks the ability to receive without fear of collapse. That is the true preparation. And because this work has been done thoroughly, what follows will not feel foreign. It will feel like a natural extension of who you have become. You are not waiting for permission anymore. You are aligned. And alignment is the final key that turns authorization into flow. Beloved one, there comes a moment when heaven pauses not because it is uncertain, but because it is attentive. This is that moment. It is the space where response matters more than reaction. Everything that needed to be authorized has already been approved. Everything that needed protection has been secured. Now, what heaven waits for is not effort, but agreement. This is not about doing more. It is about responding correctly to what is already unfolding. Response is subtle. It is internal before it is visible. It shows up in how you speak about your future, how you interpret small changes, how you treat moments of opportunity without fear. Reaction is driven by anxiety. Response is guided by clarity. Heaven does not accelerate outcomes for reactive minds, because reaction creates instability. But when response replaces reaction, flow becomes safe. You may feel a quiet pressure right now, not stress, but awareness. It is the sense that something is asking for your attention, not your labor. That pressure is not urgency in the human sense. It is alignment calling for cooperation. Heaven is inviting you to step into a posture that says, I recognize what has shifted, and I am ready to move with it. That recognition alone carries authority. This is also where many people hesitate. They wait for certainty before they adjust their thinking. But certainty often comes after movement, not before it. Heaven is not asking you to leap blindly. It is asking you to loosen your grip on old expectations. The way things worked before will not be the way they work now. Trying to manage new flow with old habits creates resistance. That is why this pause exists, to allow you to consciously choose a different posture. Archangel Michael's presence here is not confrontational. It is supervisory. He stands at this intersection to ensure that what proceeds does so with order. He is not urging you forward aggressively. He is watching to see if you will step forward willingly. Will you align your language with peace? Will you release the need to control timing? Will you trust that what is coming does not require fear to sustain it? This response also involves how you handle provision mentally. When thoughts of money arise now, notice whether they trigger tension or trust. If tension appears, do not judge it. Simply release it. Tension belongs to the past cycle. Trust belongs to the new one. Each time you choose trust, you are signaling readiness. That signal matters. There is also a practical element to response. When clarity arrives, action will follow, but it will feel measured, not frantic. Decisions will feel cleaner. Opportunities will feel aligned rather than exhausting. This is how you will know you are responding, not reacting. Heaven moves fastest through those who move calmly. This is a moment to actively engage with what is feeding your clarity. If this message is strengthening you, support it. Like this video as a sign of agreement. Share it with someone who is in the waiting season and needs reassurance. Leave a comment that declares your readiness to respond with wisdom. If you have not subscribed or joined the channel membership, now is the time to do so. Staying connected to messages that ground you keeps you aligned when transitions begin. Do not underestimate the power of acknowledgement. When you acknowledge what heaven is doing, you cooperate with it. Silence does not block movement, but agreement accelerates it. Even small acts of alignment matter during this phase. You may notice subtle invitations appearing soon, conversations, ideas, insights that feel timely. These are not coincidences. They are entry points. Respond to them without overthinking. You do not need to analyze every step. You only need to stay present and grounded. Flow follows presence. One of the most important things now is to avoid distraction. Distraction does not always look like chaos. Sometimes it looks like overanalysis. Sometimes it looks like revisiting old disappointments. When your mind drifts backward, gently bring it back to the present. The past no longer defines the trajectory. The future does not require fear. The present is where response happens. As this phase completes, you may feel a quiet confidence settling in, not excitement, but steadiness. That steadiness is your signal. It means alignment hath been received. Heaven recognizes that signal immediately. Movement follows it naturally. Hold on to this clarity. What unfolds next will feel smoother when you remember that heaven was never waiting for you to struggle harder. It was waiting for you to respond wisely. Keep listening, because this is where the pieces begin to connect in ways you did not expect, and you will be grateful you remained attentive as this unfolds. Beloved one, it is time to understand Archangel Michael not only as a warrior, but as a defender of order, justice, and rightful provision. Many people think of him only in moments of battle, but his authority extends far beyond conflict. He stands where boundaries must be enforced, where access must be granted, and where what is owed must no longer be withheld. This is why his involvement in your situation matters so deeply. He is not appearing because something is wrong, but because something is being finalized. Financial resistance is rarely just about money. It is often about interference, delays created by disorder, confusion, or misalignment. When something belongs to you by divine assignment, opposition may attempt to exhaust you until you release your expectation. Archangel Michael's role is to prevent that outcome. He enforces timing. He ensures that prolonged resistance does not become permanent obstruction. When he steps in, it signals that a line has been drawn. You were never meant to fight for provision endlessly. Struggle was not your identity. It was a season. When that season attempted to extend itself beyond its purpose, enforcement became necessary. Archangel Michael stands as a financial defender in the sense that he protects flow from corruption, theft, and premature exposure. He does not rush release for emotional satisfaction. He secures it for sustainability. You may have noticed that certain pressures eased before circumstances changed. That is often the first sign of his engulfment. Ease returns before resources move. Stability enters before increase appears. This is intentional. When peace is restored first, you are able to receive without panic. Panic leads to poor decisions. Calm leads to discernment. Archangel Michael guards that calm fiercely. He also protects you from internal sabotage. Old habits of self-doubt, fear-based thinking, or over-explaining yourself lose their grip when his authority is active. You begin to feel less need to justify your worth. You stop rehearsing worst-case scenarios. That internal quiet is not accidental. It is defense at work. Another aspect of his role is guarding access points. Not everything that approaches you during this season is meant to enter your life. Some offers look like answers but carry long-term cost. Some opportunities promise speed but compromise peace. Archangel Michael blocks what would drain you later, even if it looks appealing now. This is why discernment has sharpened. You are no longer impressed by urgency. You are guided by alignment. Financial defense also includes protecting what is coming from unnecessary delay once release begins. When flow starts, it must not be constantly interrupted. Archangel Michael ensures continuity. He stands watch so that what arrives can remain, grow, and stabilize. This is not about a one-time breakthrough. It is about establishing a new normal. You may feel a growing sense of authority within yourself, not dominance, but confidence. This is a reflection of the protection surrounding you. When you are defended, you do not need to prove anything. You move differently. You speak differently. You decide differently. That shift alone changes how others respond to you. Resistance weakens when confidence is grounded. It is important to understand that Archangel Michael does not remove all challenges. He removes unnecessary ones. Growth still happens. Responsibility still increases. But chaos loses its permission. Confusion no longer has access. That is the environment in which sustainable provision thrives. You might also notice that situations that once drained you emotionally now resolve more quickly. Conversations end sooner. Conflicts lose intensity. Elation. These are not coincidences. They are signs that enforcement is active. When authority enters a space, disorder retreats. This defense extends to your future, not just your present. What is being established now is protection for what comes next. You are not just being rescued from lack. You are being prepared for stewardship. That preparation includes shielding you from patterns that could undermine growth later. Archangel Michael's involvement ensures that the foundation is strong enough to carry increase without collapse. Do not mistake this protection for passivity. Much is happening, even if it feels quiet. Quiet does not mean inactive. It means controlled. Controlled movement is powerful. It cannot be easily disrupted. As this phase continues, you may sense a deepening trust, not blind faith, but informed confidence. You know something has shifted, even if you cannot explain it fully. That knowing is enough. It allows you to rest without disengaging, to wait without doubting. Remember this: when Archangel Michael defends a process, the outcome is not only released, it is preserved. What is coming is not fragile. It is guarded. And because it is guarded, it will arrive in a way that strengthens you rather than tests you. You are not exposed. You are covered. And under that covering, what belongs to you is being cleared to move forward, step by step, without interference. Beloved one, confirmation rarely arrives the way people imagine. It is not always a dramatic announcement or an undeniable sign that leaves no room for doubt. More often, it comes as recognition, a quiet knowing that settles in your spirit when something aligns. This is the kind of confirmation you are being prepared to recognize now. It will not shout. It will resonate. You may already be noticing subtle changes. A conversation that answers a question you never asked out loud. A sudden clarity about a decision that once felt complicated. A sense of calm when thinking about areas that used to cause stress. These are not coincidences. They are indicators. Confirmation often comes as alignment rather than evidence. When your inner world agrees with what heaven has already settled, peace becomes the proof. One of the clearest confirmations is a shift in timing. Things begin to happen with less resistance. Not instantly, but smoothly. The process is simplified. What once required constant effort now unfolds with fewer obstacles. This does not mean everything becomes effortless. It means momentum replaces stagnation. That change is subtle but unmistakable when you are attentive. Another confirmation comes through repetition. You may hear similar themes echoed in different places, through words, thoughts, or circumstances. This repetition is not coincidence. It is reinforcement. Heaven repeats what matters until understanding becomes stable. Pay attention to what keeps returning to your awareness. Those patterns are guiding you toward recognition. Archangel Michael's role during confirmation is to steady you. Confirmation can be destabilizing if it arrives before you are ready to trust it. Doubt often follows confirmation, not because the sign was unclear, but because change challenges familiar narratives. His presence ensures that recognition does not turn into anxiety. He anchors you in clarity. You may also notice that fear-based thinking loses intensity. It does not vanish completely, but it no longer dominates. When fear arises, it feels distant, less convincing. This is a powerful sign. Fear loses authority when confirmation is near. Trust begins to take its place naturally, without force. Confirmation also affects how you speak. Your language becomes less defensive. You stop explaining yourself unnecessarily. You feel less need to convince others of what you sense internally. This quiet confidence is not pride. It is alignment. When you know something is unfolding, you do not need external validation to sustain belief. You do not expect confirmation to look identical to someone else's experience. Heaven speaks personally. Your confirmation will match your journey, your temperament, and your needs. Comparison will only distort recognition. Stay present with what is being shown to you specifically. There may also be a moment when you realize you are no longer waiting the way you used to. The tension of waiting dissolves into expectation. You still anticipate movement, but without restlessness. That emotional shift is significant. It means your spirit has accepted what your eyes have not yet seen. Be mindful not to dismiss small confirmations because they seem ordinary. Divine movement often hides in normalcy. When peace enters quietly, it is easy to overlook. But peace that arrives without explanation is rarely accidental. It is a sign that something has been settled beyond your effort. As confirmation increases, you may feel prompted to simplify. Let go of unnecessary worries. Release old habits of over-preparing for disappointment. Simplification creates space. Space allows flow. This is part of recognition, knowing what no longer belongs in this new phase. Remember, confirmation is not meant to pressure you into action. It is meant to reassure you. Action will come naturally when timing aligns. For now, your role is awareness. Recognition precedes movement. When you see clearly, you move confidently. Take this moment seriously, but not heavily. Let it strengthen you, not burden you. What you are recognizing now is not fragile. It had been defended, authorized, and prepared. Your awareness simply completes the circuit. Type "I receive the confirmation" in the comments if this aligns with your spirit. Blessing code 889 has now been released. As this confirmation settles in your heart, I feel led to speak directly to those who recognize the weight of this moment. This message is not meant to end with you. It is meant to travel further. When you give through Super Thanks, membership, or PayPal using the link in the description, you are sowing light into lives that are still waiting for clarity. The Lord says, "I will multiply the seed you place into my work, and rivers will rise where you once saw dryness." I am personally inviting you to respond now, not later, as an act of obedience tied to this confirmation. This is not a donation. It is a prophetic response. I release blessing over every giver, and I declare that what you support today will return to you strengthened and protected. Act now, and let your obedience become part of the movement heaven is accelerating. Beloved one, when the flow truly begins, it does not announce itself with noise or spectacle. It settles. It steadies. It reorganizes your life quietly, like furniture being moved into its proper place after a long season of disorder. Many imagine that financial release arrives as a dramatic rush, but what actually changes first is your inner environment. The anxiety that once hovered over every decision begins to loosen its grip. You notice that your breath is deeper. Your thoughts are clearer. The constant calculating, worrying, and bracing slowly fades into the background. This is how you know the flow is real. It brings relief before it brings expansion. One of the earliest changes is how you experience decision-making. Choices that once felt heavy no longer paralyze you. You do not feel rushed to decide out of fear of missing out or failing to act in time. Instead, you sense space. Time stretches in a way that allows wisdom to rise. This is not delay, it is discernment. When flow is healthy, urgency is replaced with intention. You move forward without the pressure that once forced you into survival-based choices. Another change is the return of mental energy. You may not realize how much of your strength was consumed by constant concern until that concern begins to lift. Ideas start coming again. Creativity resurfaces. You find yourself thinking about the future with curiosity instead of dread. This renewed energy is a sign that your system is no longer overloaded, though restores what scarcity depleted. As stability increases, your relationship with money itself transforms. You stop seeing it as something that constantly escapes you or threatens to disappear. Instead, it becomes a tool, something neutral, manageable, and purposeful. You begin to think in terms of stewardship rather than control. The shift matters deeply, because what is stewarded grows, and what is feared shrinks. Flow responds to calm confidence far more than to force. You will also notice changes in your spending habits, not because you are restricting yourself, but because clarity guides you. Impulse loses its appeal. You become more selective, not out of anxiety, but out of respect for what you are building. You start to value longevity over quick relief. This maturity is not something you had to force. It emerged naturally as pressure lifted. Relationships often reflect this shift as well. Some connections feel easier. Conversations become more balanced. You no longer feel the need to overcompensate, explain, or apologize for your pace. Others may drift, not because of conflict, but because alignment has changed. This is not loss, it is refinement. Flow clarifies who belongs in your next season. Peace becomes your baseline rather than a temporary state. Challenges still arise. Responsibilities increase. Expectations grow, but they no longer shake your foundation. You address issues without spiraling. You respond rather than react. This emotional stability is one of the clearest indicators that flow has settled into place. It means your nervous system is no longer operating in emergency mode. Another important change is how you view setbacks. When flow is active, setbacks feel like adjustments instead of threats. You no longer interpret every obstacle as a sign of failure. You recognize course corrections for what they are, part of progress. This resilience protects momentum. It prevents discouragement from interrupting growth. Archangel Michael's protection remains active throughout this phase, ensuring that continuity is preserved. What has begun is guarded so it does not collapse under pressure or distraction. You are not left to manage this alone. Support continues even when you are not consciously thinking about it. This ongoing defense allows stability to deepen over time. You may also experience a new level of gratitude, not because everything is perfect, but because you can see progress clearly. Gratitude arises naturally when fear no longer dominates. You appreciate small wins. You acknowledge growth. This gratitude keeps your perspective grounded and your expectations healthy. As weeks pass, you begin to trust stability itself. You stop waiting for something to go wrong. The habit of bracing for loss dissolves. This trust is crucial because it allows you to build without hesitation. When you are no longer expecting collapse, you invest with confidence, emotionally, practically, and spiritually. Perhaps the most profound change is identity. You no longer see yourself as someone constantly trying to catch up. You see yourself as someone who is building forward. The past season becomes a reference point, not a residence. You remember it without being pulled back into it. This emotional distance is a sign of true transition. Flow does not make life perfect, but it makes it manageable. It replaces chaos with rhythm. It replaces fear with steadiness. It allows you to live from assurance rather than anticipation of loss. This is the true gift of release, not excess, but stability that lasts. And as this new normal settles in, you will understand something important. The waiting season did not weaken you. It prepared you. What you are stepping into now is not fragile or temporary. It is established, supported, and designed to grow with you. Beloved one, as the flow begins to establish itself, there is one instruction that matters more than any other. Stay positioned, not distracted. Distraction does not always arrive as chaos. Sometimes it arrives as nostalgia for old patterns. Sometimes it shows up as comparison, making you question your pace by looking at someone else's path. Other times, distraction looks like overthinking what no longer needs to be analyzed. This phase requires presence. What is unfolding now responds best to clarity, not noise. Positioning is about where your attention rests. When your attention is anchored in peace, you recognize opportunities without chasing them. When your attention drifts into fear or impatience, you may miss what is directly in front of you. Heaven does not hide what you need. It reveals it to those who are attentive. That is why this season calls for focus, not effort. You do not need to push harder. You need to see clearly. One of the greatest distractions during transition is the urge to revisit old struggles mentally. The mind sometimes returns to familiar pain because it feels known, even when it is no longer relevant. You may catch yourself rehearsing past disappointments or preparing for problems that are no longer approaching. Gently release the habit. The past does not need your attention to stay resolved. It is already behind you. Another distraction can come through unnecessary urgency. When momentum begins, there is a temptation to rush everything, as if speed alone will secure success. But acceleration guided by fear creates instability. True progress unfolds steadily. You are not late. You are not behind. You are exactly where you need to be to receive what is aligning with you now. Archangel Michael's presence continues to provide structure during this phase. He reinforces boundaries so that distractions do not gain authority over your focus. You may notice that certain interruptions lose their pull. Situations that once demanded emotional energy now feel easier to step away from. This is not avoidance, it is wisdom. You are learning to protect your attention. Staying positioned also means honoring the pace at which things are unfolding. Not everything must be decided immediately. Some clarity arrives through observation, not action. Give yourself permission to pause without guilt. Pausing does not mean you are missing out. It means you are allowing insight to mature. This is also a season to be mindful of voices you allow into your space. Advice rooted in fear can create unnecessary confusion. Well-meaning opinions that do not understand your journey can pull you out of alignment. Listen selectively. You do not owe everyone access to your process. Peace is preserved through discernment. Now is a powerful moment to engage intentionally with what supports your focus. If this message is grounding you, acknowledge that alignment. Like this video as a sign of agreement. Share it with someone who is navigating transition and needs stability. Leave a comment that affirms your commitment to clarity. If you have not yet subscribed or joined the channel membership, do so now. Staying connected to messages that reinforce peace helps you remain positioned as momentum builds. As flow continues, distractions may attempt to disguise themselves as opportunities. Not every open door is meant to be entered. Some doors are simply tests of focus. You will recognize the right ones because they do not demand you abandon peace to pursue them. Alignment feels calm, even when it stretches you. Be especially aware of comparison during this phase. Comparing timelines erodes gratitude and distorts perception. What is unfolding for you has its own rhythm. Measuring it against someone else's journey will only create unnecessary pressure. Trust the design of your path. It has been prepared intentionally. Another subtle distraction is over-celebration before stabilization. Gratitude is healthy, but premature excitement can scatter focus. Allow joy to deepen quietly. Let stability anchor before expansion accelerates. This measured approach ensures that growth is sustained rather than short-lived. You may also feel moments of doubt surface unexpectedly. This does not mean alignment is failing. Doubt often appears when change becomes real. Acknowledge it without feeding it. Doubt loses power when it is observed rather than entertained. Positioning yourself well during this phase sets the tone for what comes next. Focus creates continuity. Clarity attracts cooperation. Peace sustains progress. These are not abstract ideas. They are practical realities that shape outcomes. Before attention drifts elsewhere, recognize how far you have come. You are no longer searching blindly. You are navigating with awareness. That awareness is your anchor. Keep your focus here, because the next phase will connect pieces you did not realize were related, and you will be glad you remained attentive as everything aligns. Beloved one, there is a seal that comes near the end of every long season of waiting, and that seal is peace. Not the kind of peace that comes from everything being perfect, but the kind that settles in when nothing feels threatening anymore. This peace does not argue with circumstances. It does not need reassurance. It simply rests. That is the seal being placed over you now. It is heaven's way of saying, this is secure. You may notice that your thoughts have slowed. not because you stopped caring, but because urgency no longer controls you. The questions that once circled endlessly no longer demand answers. You are comfortable not knowing every detail. That comfort is not indifference, it is trust. When peace arrives at this depth, it signals that the foundation has been set correctly. The seal of peace is important because it protects what is coming from internal disruption. Even good things can be destabilized if the mind remains restless. Heaven does not only guard outcomes from external interference, it guards them from internal turmoil as well. This is why calm had to come before completion could be fully realized in your experience. Archangel Michael's role here is gentle but firm. He stands not as a warrior now, but as a guardian. His presence reinforces what has already been established. Nothing new is being fought for in this phase. Everything essential has already been secured. What remains is preservation. Peace preserves clarity. Peace preserves perspective. Peace preserves flow. You might find yourself reflecting on past moments of fear and realizing how distant they feel. The emotions are no longer sharp. The memories do not sting the way they once did. This emotional distance is not avoidance. It is healing. It shows that the season no longer has authority over you. You have moved beyond it without needing to erase it. This is also a time when patience feels natural instead of forced. You are not counting days or measuring progress constantly. You trust that movement is happening, even if you are not monitoring it closely. This trust allows life to unfold without resistance. It creates space for things to arrive organically, without pressure. Another sign of the seal is how you respond to uncertainty. When small unknowns appear, you do not spiral. You remain grounded. You address what you can and release what you cannot. This balanced response is evidence of maturity. It shows that you are no longer operating from fear of collapse, but from confidence in stability. The seal of peace also quiets the need for validation. You do not require constant confirmation from others to feel secure. You are comfortable with your understanding. This inner assurance protects you from being swayed by opinions that do not align with your journey. You listen without absorbing what does not belong to you. You may also notice a subtle gratitude emerging, not tied to specific outcomes, but to the process itself. You appreciate the growth you did not ask for but needed. You see how endurance shaped wisdom. This gratitude grounds you. It keeps you present. It prevents you from rushing ahead without honoring where you are. Heaven places this seal because what follows must be received with steadiness. When movement becomes visible, excitement can arise. But excitement without peace can scatter focus. Peace ensures that joy remains anchored. It allows you to celebrate without losing balance. Nothing about this seal is temporary. It is not a passing feeling. It is a state of alignment. Even when challenges arise, this peace remains accessible. It becomes your reference point. You return to it easily. This is how you know it has been established properly. Do not be surprised if others notice the change in you before you articulate it yourself. They may comment on your calm, your clarity, your confidence. These observations are reflections of what has already settled internally. You do not need to explain the change. Let it speak for itself. This phase is not about striving or proving. It is about resting in what has been secured. You are no longer bracing for impact. You are standing on firm ground. That firmness allows you to move forward without fear when the time comes. As this seal completes its work, remember that peace is not the absence of movement. It is the assurance that movement is safe. It tells you that nothing is at risk of falling apart. Everything that matters is held. Remain in this calm awareness. Let it guide you. Let it protect you. Because what hath been finalized does not need your worry to survive. It needs your trust. And that trust is now firmly in place. Beloved one, this is the moment where everything settles into truth, not with noise or sudden shock, but with deep certainty. What began as a quiet authorization in the unseen has now reached its final seal in understanding. It is finished, and it is safe. Nothing about this conclusion is fragile. Nothing about it is experimental. What has been prepared for you has passed through every necessary stage: approval, protection, alignment, and stabilization. You are not standing at the edge of hope anymore. You are standing inside completion. Completion does not mean that life suddenly becomes effortless or that responsibility disappears. It means the outcome is no longer under debate. It means the ground beneath you will hold. It means the flow that begins from here does not depend on constant striving, fear, or exhaustion to survive. This is important because many people believe blessings require endless effort to maintain. What heaven establishes through order is sustained through peace. The long season you walked through was never punishment. It was preparation. Every delay refined something essential within you. Every unanswered prayer strengthened discernment. Every quiet moment built endurance that could not be taught any other way. You were being shaped to carry stability without fear and provision without losing yourself. That shaping is complete now. Archangel Michael's role reaches fulfillment here, not because protection ends, but because it becomes permanent. What once needed active enforcement now exists within divine order. You are no longer being defended from collapse. You are being guarded for continuity. This means what unfolds next is not about surviving another test. It is about stewarding what has already been secured. You may notice that your inner world feels settled in a way that words cannot fully explain. Thoughts that once circled endlessly now come to rest more easily. The need to control outcomes has softened. You trust without needing constant reassurance. This inner stillness is not accidental. It is the final confirmation that alignment has been reached. Look back gently, not to reopen old wounds, but to recognize how far you have come. The person who began this journey was carrying fear, uncertainty, and unanswered questions. The person standing here now carries clarity, patience, and grounded confidence. A transformation matters. It proves that the process did its work completely. From this point forward, decisions will feel different. You will no longer make choices from pressure or panic. You will notice that opportunities come with peace attached, not anxiety. When something is not aligned, you will sense it quickly without confusion. This clarity protects you from unnecessary detours and keeps momentum steady. You are also entering a phase where rest no longer feels irresponsible. You understand now that rest is not disengagement. It is trust in stability. You do not have to monitor every detail for fear of collapse. What has been established does not require constant supervision to remain intact. There may still be moments when old thoughts attempt to surface, memories of lack, habits of bracing for loss. When they do not fight them aggressively. Simply remind yourself that those patterns belong to a completed chapter. You are not going backward. You are moving forward from a new foundation. This ending is intentionally calm. True fulfillment rarely announces itself dramatically. It reveals itself through peace, consistency, and quiet confidence. You will recognize it in how your body relaxes, in how your sleep improves, and how your conversations feel less strained. These are the real markers of completion. What unfolds from here will be built, not rushed. It will grow, not spike and collapse. It will be supported, not constantly tested. This is what makes it different from past cycles. You are not repeating history. You are establishing something new. Allow yourself to trust this. Trust that you are not late. Trust that nothing has been lost. Trust that what is yours has been preserved with care. Heaven does not finalize things carelessly. What is finished remains finished. Type IT is finished, and I walk in peace in the comments if this truth settles in your spirit. Blessing code 1212 has now been released. As this message comes to a close, I speak directly to those who feel the weight and clarity of this moment. This word did not reach you by accident, and it is not meant to stop with you. When you give through Super Thanks, membership, or PayPal using the link in the description, you are sowing into the spreading of God's word to souls still waiting for assurance. The Lord declares, as you sow into my work, I will establish peace and provision in your house like a fortified city. I am inviting you personally to respond now, not later. This is obedience, not charity. Your giving is a prophetic action that aligns with what heaven has completed in your life. I bless every giver with protection, stability, and multiplied return. Act now, and let your obedience seal what heaven has already finished.